doing, Tom?
This isn't about money. It's revenge.
We're more alike than you know. Let me help you embrace who you really are.
Well, hello.
Andy Serkis, as I live and breathe.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me today. I am such an admirer of yours. I hope I haven't been too much of a pest insisting on interviewing you. Because
Not at all. I'm sorry I've delayed you. I've just, unfortunately, I had a visual effects meeting for another thing, and so I got delayed. So I'm so sorry to have kept you.
Oh, no, no worries whatsoever. No worries whatsoever. So anyway, this has been a total thrill interviewing you today. So thank you for joining me to talk about S.A.S. Red Notice. So exactly what does your character do and who does he work for? Sometimes he just like flows between groups, doesn't he?
Well, he works he is an S.A.S. veteran. I mean, he's been working for the S.A.S. for years and graduated into a position where he has become, as he says, the consistency. So he works for the British government, defending their economic and, territorial interests at home and abroad. And but he works in the kind of the deep state, the darky murkness of deep state, so that it's his job in a way to employ and be the facilitator for other groups to carry out work on behalf of the British government. So hence in this story it's about brick gas and clearing a village for pipelines to go through and so on and so forth. So he sort of goes up and down the food chain, and he works in lots of different areas, but he is kind of has gone through the ranks as a soldier, then joined the S.A.S., where of course there is no rank, and then has worked his way up into a sort of senior position in terms of organizing operations.
He's kind of a fixer. He's a fixer. He goes
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's the guy you call when you want to get the dirty work done.
Correct.
You give the best speeches in this movie, and also some of the best one-liners, like knitting circle. I mean, you shine in front of everyone. It's so funny.
Oh well, it was a great character. It was a lovely character. It was beautifully written, and it also reflects some of Andy McNab's personal humour. That is his. In a way, George Clements is a sort of version of Andy McNab, I think. And we talked about that, and it was just wonderful being able to have him, to reference and to talk. And he gave so much of himself to this movie, and in terms of the detail, not just in terms of the operational detail, but in terms of character as well. So it was very interesting. I really, he's such an interesting man. And
what's intriguing is we know who the traitors are, the audience does, but Clements, we're waiting for him to catch up. But he gives like certain looks, of suspicion. That's just so funny, because we're screaming who you should point to, but you're just like, right. You do these looks of like, you think like, because you're no fool in this movie.
No. I mean, he's one of, again, it's very much being in the moment. This is what it's all about having optionality and being able to pivot, really, I suppose. So that's him as a character. He's used to having a certain set of decisions to make, and then having to opt for one. And if that looks like it's not going in the right direction, how do you pivot strongly and to make the best out of any situation? And that is very much how the S.A.S. operate.
You have that ultimate scene with Ruby Rose where he has a gun in your face. I mean, how did you not laugh? I know you're supposed to be like afraid and everything, but that was an intense scene.
It was an intense scene. It was. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, she did a lot of her own physical work in that, and she's pretty handy, So it wasn't difficult to make believe. It was she was very good at what she did, and but it is kind of there's a comedy in the scene, because it's like Clements turns up expecting to command the situation, and then it just gets turned around on his head. So yeah, it was it was an interesting one.
And I was shocked at how ruthless Ruby Rose's character was, because in most of these action films with the cliches, the villains give long speeches. She's like, either do what I say, give me the cell phone, or shoot them. And she does. I mean, she doesn't even let them say anything. She just plugs them away. So once you realize that this movie's like on a different Die Hard level, where, it's the violence is very shocking, but I think that's how real life would be.
Well, I think that's what was so, which is clever about this movie. It is obviously, it is, it's entertainment, it's a popcorn movie, it's a thrill ride, all of that goes, it's got romance in it, it's got all of that, but underpinning it, there is, as I say, this attention to detail in terms of the military operational aspect, and also the fact that it is a story about what governments do, to get to protect their own interests. So, and how corrupt many governments are in doing so, and so it does have that. It's sort of like a crossover between a sort of the toughness of a Paul Greengrass sort of semi-political movie and Die Hard, so it does have that tonal shift between the characters, the moments, the beats, and the situation, and
replicating the channel. I mean, those sets were amazing.
They were incredible. And really the sort of seamless blend of visual effects world and what was actually built on set is remarkable for the scale of this movie, because it really punches above its weight. It's not like a huge budget movie, it was quite lean in many respects, but it really, I think it is a real triumph of production design for sure.
And in our final moments, I hope you indulge me for a few minutes here to talk about some of my favorite things of yours. When I was 12 years old, I saw the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings in the theater. And
wow.
And I grew up playing, I'm Generation X, Dungeons and Dragons, and we spent summers playing Middle Earth, all of those things. So, I was fascinated with rotoscoping that he used in Lord of the Rings, American Pop, all of those. And to come along and do, motion capture, which is another version of that. And your performance in War on the Planet of the Apes, I know I'm coming late to the party, but I think that's the breakthrough for motion capture. Would you agree? Or
I think it was a significant kind of shift. I mean, we were really sort of in pioneering stages with Lord of the Rings, with motion capture, or performance capture, as we now call it. But so yeah, I mean, when I turned up to first work on Lord of the Rings, it was very much the animators were going to copy my performance. They were going to rotoscope my performance, and in the first film, the Fellowship of the Ring, that's what they started to do, and then the whole facial capture thing kind of ensued from there. And then we had the next film I worked with Peter Jackson on, which was King Kong. Well, by the end of Lord of the Rings, we were doing some facial capture, but then King Kong was really the next big one, and then from that, Weta had then devised a pipeline, and as you say, I think the Planet of the Apes trilogy really was a massive, groundbreaking kind of out on sets, on locations, shooting facial capture, and really honouring exactly every sort of facial tick of the actor's performance. So it was. It's gone through a real journey.
Well, thank you for educating me. Performance capture. I'll never make that mistake again.
No.
I agree. That's definitely the name it should be called. And like a little boy, watching, television growing up when we had 3 stations here in America, I watched King Kong. And it changed my life as an 8-year-old watching it on television. And of course, the famous scene where, people would run out of the theater during the insect pit, and he restored that to all its glory. You have one of the best cinema deaths in history. I mean, it's
you know what, my children are still traumatized by that. My 5-year-old at the time, Sonny, was just like, he couldn't believe what had happened. It is a good death, I have to admit.
It's a good death. And you went down you went in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, right. And it was funny because not only am I sort of with playing Kong sort of consumed by CG, I literally get consumed by CG.
That's what they call irony.
Yeah, right.
Andy, thank you so much. I know you're a busy guy all the way from London. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon. And thank you again.
Not at all. Great to speak with you.